I want to thank everybody for being here today to be a part of this, our first study committee created by House Resolution 533, House Study Committee on Innovative Financial Solutions for Senior Living. I appreciate all the conversations that have happened prior to today. I've met with a variety of stakeholders in the senior living industries and advocacy spaces, and we have several state agencies here to present data and facts and statistics. And we have a Representative Darlene Taylor here with us from Thomasville. Representative Jesse Petrin, Chairman Jesse Petrie from the Savannah area. They both bring with them, certain areas of expertise, and I'm chairing the committee. I'm Representative John LaHood from Valdosta, and happen to make a living in the the senior, in senior services and care. So I happen to know a little bit about this topic. Certainly not everything, and look forward to hearing more, some data today that will help us in guiding our recommendations that come out of this committee. So, and we have some other providers, senior care providers, in with us today who appreciate being here and who may have some things to say, to us before the meeting's adjourned. So I could recognize more people, but I'm afraid I might forget somebody. So again, a lot of you have been very instrumental in forming, making sure this committee even happened. I will name a couple: Georgia Council on Aging, Kathy Floyd, and her board chair, Vicki Johnson. The Alzheimer's Association is represented here, and others. So thank you all very much, and we will get started. Well, I do want to say one more thing. It's my goal to take a very conservative approach to whatever we recommend out of this committee. When we're talking about serving low-income seniors, today there's a certain number of them, and Director Abby Cox is gonna share some demographic stats. But my data shows me that the number of Georgia citizens over the age 65 is going to double in the next 20 years. And the greatest rate of growth in that cohort is people 85 and over. And those are the ones most likely to need some type of care and supportive services. And a large number of those are not going to be able to pay their own way. And so as a state, I feel like it's the responsible thing to do to get out in front of this issue and look for ways to make sure their needs are met, where we maintain certain quality standards and do it in the most cost-effective way to the taxpayers of Georgia. So I want to ask Director Abby Cox from Department of Human Services to step to the mic and present her information.
Well, good afternoon, Chairman LaHood and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and talk a little bit about those statistics. I think you've covered the high points that I'll be covering in my presentation today, but I hope to also talk to you a little bit about our state plan process and how that has informed not only the work that we'll be doing at the Division of Aging Services, but might inform other stakeholders as well. But I'm Abby Cox. I am the director of the Division of Aging Services for the Department of Human Services. And at the Department of Human Services, our vision is for stronger families for a stronger family all across the age spectrum. And at the Division of Aging Services, we fulfill that by really helping consumers achieve living longer, living safely, and living well in the setting of their choosing. So some of the acronyms that we use quite often in the Division of Aging Services and across aging service providers is OAA. That's our overarching federal legislation, the Older Americans Act. We have the Administration for Community Living. They are our federal partners through whom funding comes down. We have the Division of Aging Services, that's me, and all of the individuals who work over in the Division of Aging. And then another one that you'll hear a lot about are our area agencies on aging. You'll see a map of those in a minute, but we have 12 of them across the state. So these are those demographics that Chairman LaHood just referenced. We are considered one of the fastest growing states for a 60-plus population, and as you'll see in a second, 85 and older is even faster. So these demographics, it projects out until 2050. It's census data, and those of us in the Aging Network, this is not new to us, but for those of you who haven't seen these demographics, they're quite staggering to see. Not only are we on an uptick, but that uptick will continue at least until 2050, as these projections show. And then if we look at 85 and above, we are the 10th fastest state for the 85 and above population. And these are the individuals who are likely to need some supportive services. They are also redefining the way that we look and at aging and the way that we deliver services. What we hear often is that they want to remain in their homes and communities. And also, as we look at service delivery options, they want things delivered in a different manner. And so we're having to, as an Aging Network, respond to those changing demands. We're able to introduce concepts like assistive technology that we had not looked at as much in the past. So it's a very interesting demographic and one that we've got to focus on across the state. So this is a snapshot of the 60-plus population across the state. But what I want to say about this is it might catch some of you. It's difficult to understand because the lightest colored area in there is the Atlanta Regional Commission, and it says that their 60-plus population is about 15% of their total population. So that's really important to this slide. So we know that the largest number of individuals throughout the state live in the Atlanta region area, and of that total population, just above 15% of those individuals are 60 and above. Now, if you were to take a snapshot of the state for just looking at the 60-plus population, the Atlanta Regional Commission would have the highest number of individuals. In fact, they serve 1/3 of our total population, 1/3 of those that are 60 and above. The second highest area is our Northwest Georgia area, and then the third is up in the Georgia Mountains Legacy Link area. So we certainly see a lot of growth up to the north. What we also have noticed with our demographics is that although a lot of individuals are moving, they're choosing to come to Georgia to retire, we also see that within Georgia, those who are here, a lot of inward moving. And there are various reasons for that. Some of it is proximity to family. They're moving closer to loved ones. A lot of them are moving closer to resources, healthcare, and other types of resources. So we see a lot of shifting dynamics even within the state. And this is a map of our planning and service areas. As I mentioned earlier, we work very closely with 12 area agencies on aging across the state. And each of those colors represents one of those area agencies on aging. They deliver the lion's share of our Older Americans Act services. And we also work very closely with 9 centers for independent living across the state. For our area agencies on aging, 10 of them reside within a regional commission, and 2 of them are standalone 501c3s. And those are up in Legacy Link and then in Albany at Sewega Area Agency on Aging. The services that they provide, as I said, are really our Older Americans Act services. So just at a high level, those services are our Aging and Disability Resource Connection. This is a very big program that we have in, again, all of our area agencies on aging. It is the no wrong door for long-term care services and supports. what we hold very fast and very true to is that the information that individuals receive when they call into our ADRC is unbiased. We try to make sure that the consumer is engaged in the conversation, and we really help them understand all of the services along the long-term care spectrum, so that they can make an informed choice about what areas they might want to look at. We serve individuals at all income levels, and we might do something as easy as information and referral. A person calls in and they just want to know a hairdresser who serves people who are 60 and above. We'll have a list of, something as little as that, or we could take them on to some screening and see if they might qualify for some publicly funded services as well. So it can be a very short time commitment that our counselors are on the phone with them to a very long time period where we're really assessing them for more supportive services. Within the services that our area agencies on aging also provide is home and community-based services. We are on the non-Medicaid home and community-based services side. And those services are everything from nutrition and wellness, so our home-delivered meals, which are very critical so that a person is able to have good food, that it meets their nutrition requirements. It also is a way that we can have eyes on them and see if they are doing well. It might be the only interaction that individual has on any given day. But we also have congregate meals. Those are usually provided in the senior center setting. So we get individuals in and we engage in them not only by having them eat a meal together, but there are other activities that might be provided at that senior center. We also provide a lot of in-home services, and those include home modification and repair, respite care, telephone reassurance, homemaker services, chore services, and personal care assistance. And then we also provide services for our caregivers. And what research tells us is that we have to support our caregivers just as much as those for whom we're providing care, because they often can go downhill faster. So we have several services that we can provide to our caregivers. We also, at the Division of Aging Services, we provide adult protective services, and that is for investigating allegations of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of older adults and individuals with disabilities. And we also have the Public Guardianship Office, where we serve as the guardian of last resort if we are appointed by the probate court. So I wanted to take a minute and talk to you a little bit about our state plan that was just recently signed. For every state, the Older Americans Act says that you must have a state unit on aging. And that state unit on aging for Georgia is us. That's the Division of Aging Services. And not only must you have a state unit on aging, but that state unit on aging must submit a state plan to the Administration for Community Living. And that really gives them an idea of what are our priorities that we're working toward in that next state plan cycle. And those state plan cycles, we can choose to have one that is a 2, 3, or 4-year period. And in Georgia, we chose a 4-year period. And the state plan must be signed by myself, by the Commissioner for the Department of Human Services, and then also the Governor. So we are at the end of a current 4-year cycle, and so we had to put forward a new state plan, and that was just recently signed by Governor Kemp on July 18th. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the work we did leading into that state plan cycle. So this was my first time to be a part of putting together a state plan. I'm about 3.5 years in as the State Unit on Aging Director, and to me it was very important that we gathered input from individuals across the state. It meant a lot of travel and a lot of logistics on our end, but I wanted to make sure that everybody felt like they had the opportunity to have a voice in guiding how our state plan was developed. So to that end, we contracted with the Georgia State Health Policy Center and developed 12 community conversations across the state where we gathered a list of individuals together and got their input. So those sessions ranged from an attendance of 33 individuals to 114 individuals. And all in all, we had just over 700 people participate at those community conversation sessions. The participants included service providers. They were about 39% of the attendees, consumers, who were about 28%, advocates, who were about 20%, unpaid caregivers were about 6%, paid caregiving staff 2%, and then others that just did not identify were about 5%. So as you can see in those, I might be a caregiver and an advocate, so it was kind of hard to parcel out which bucket you identified with, but we were very pleased with the overall attendance at these community conversations. 47% of the participants were service recipients, and nearly 6 out of 10 were age 60 and older. And that was good. I was really hoping to hear the voices of those who have received some of our services, so we know, are we doing a good job with that service delivery, or are there areas for improvement? Our participants were largely female and highly educated. 59% held an associate's degree. 23% of the participants did not provide their incomes, but more than half that did said that they have an annual income of $50,000 or less. And then for those who were not able to come to one of our community conversations, we tried to get the word out in as many avenues as we could to let them know that there was an opportunity to provide input online. And we got a lot of people responding online. And at the end of it, whenever we gathered all of our information from the people who came in person and those who took the survey, we were able to gather a better idea of what the top priorities are. But as people came in to if they came to one of the community conversations, what happened is we had several round tables, and we had 10 key issues that they could look at. And what we wanted was some instant polling, so they had those little polling devices where they could tell us what their top concerns were as we move forward. And both the individuals who came to a community conversation and also online, those top issues were as follows. You can see up here, it was transportation, it was aging in place, so that would be housing, and it was physical, emotional, and behavioral health. Transportation and housing were also the top 2 issues in our last state plan cycle. The new issue that emerged this year was physical, emotional, and behavioral health. And this really encompassed a lot of the concerns around Alzheimer's and related dementias. So that really helped form, as we were writing our state plan, how can we address a lot of these issues? And that becomes a little bit difficult in my division because we don't have dollars for a lot of the housing or the transportation, but to me, what it does is it begs for us to be partnering better with state agencies and other partners across the state who can help us out in these areas. And my last slide here is I just wanted to make sure you all knew when we receive funding, this would be our federal funding, how we distribute that out to our area agencies on aging. And so the Older Americans Act tells us that we have to come up with a funding formula that has to be approved by the Administration for Community Living. We call that the intrastate funding formula. And so you can see the factors and then the weights to each of those. So again, as you look at our area agencies on aging and the funding they receive, you would have the Atlanta Regional Commission getting 1/3 of that total funding because of the population that they served, followed by Northwest and Legacy Link up in the Georgia mountains. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Three. Y'all hear me?
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thank you. Director Cox, thank you so much. I wanted to mention, it struck me that it's interesting to me that transportation was number 1 because it does directly relate to this. So having served seniors for 30 years in my career, from day one to this day, and I know we're not here today necessarily to talk about transportation, but that it's just been ubiquitous. The whole 30 years, there's been a challenge with people finding transportation. And so that continues to be, it just needs to be said. It's a recurring theme. But it does impact where people can live. And so it does relate very well, I think, to what we're talking about today. There is a dearth of housing for low-income people, but particularly seniors. And all through the years, I've struggled to try to help people to find whatever HUD type of facilities that are available in different communities, particularly my own in Savannah. And there's always a waiting list, a mile long. But transportation can allow people to access sites that might be further removed from the heart of the city. And so it absolutely impacts what we're here talking about today. But it just struck me that needed to be emphasized, that it was your number one. So.
And I really appreciate the comment, Chairman. And what we know is, as we look at the social determinants of health, social isolation is one of the highest drivers for people having negative health outcomes. And if we could get them engaged in a congregate setting where they come into a senior center, we can really combat that. But the transportation, and for so many reasons, can be very difficult.
It's a challenge. It's something we've got to tackle.
Yeah.
I hope we can.
Thank you, Chairman Petrie. Chairman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My comment also had to do with transportation. I live in a rural community, and our seniors do find it particularly difficult for transportation. What remedies do you have? I know if they're on Medicaid, they can call in advance and sometimes get transportation. But are there any strategic plans to help improve that, or do we know it's only going to get worse? I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Well, this is something that we're going to be tackling in our next state plan cycle, and I'd be happy to send y'all the link to the state plan so you can take a look at it. But we're really challenging ourselves within the division, even though we may not have the dollars coming in to us directly. What are some innovative strategies that we can help spearhead? And a lot of our areas, especially in our rural areas, they've got innovative strategies, everything from using vouchers, and then in more of our metro areas, really looking at options like Uber and Lyft. That might be an option. Really trying to use those in their service delivery models, and piloting that out to see if we're getting a good return on investment.
Thank you.
Yeah, one other issue you mentioned in the survey, the majority of the respondents less than $50,000. But I want to emphasize, and I want to make sure this is accurate. Low income seniors would be that's $13,000 a year plus or minus. Is that not the figure we need to keep in mind? Can you speak to that? It's a little over $13,000 to be federal poverty level.
Yes. Yes, Chairman,
would
it
be
is.
13,000 plus or minus.
That's right.
Thank you.
And
Just
what
wanted
we
to
hope
emphasize
on
that.
our side is through the non-Medicaid work is to preserve those assets as long as we can so that they don't spend down to Medicaid.
Sure. And we're interested in all seniors and lower income seniors,
Right.
but to make sure we understand the demarcation between what is federal poverty level
Very
and
good.
those that might be above it, even if they're still low income, $13,000. Thank you.
Chairman Taylor.
Thank you. Going along, looking at some of the alternative care, from what I hear from seniors, they do want to stay in place. Do we have any flexibility on the rules of what we can provide and what we can't?
Well, we do have a list of services that are provided under home and community-based services. And so we are responsible for monitoring the services that are provided. So a lot of those have contractual obligations attached to them. But we certainly support innovation among our area agencies on aging and finding new ways to deliver those services. And so, to that end, there's been a lot of talk around the use of assistive technology now, knowing that that is a less expensive option versus me sending in an actual person to sit with an individual. So we are constantly trying to find new and innovative ways to keep a person in their home and their community.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Director Cox, for bringing the information, and great data here, and one of my biggest takeaways is just confirmation of the rapidly growing demographic. And we're doing lots of good things for seniors now. I'd like to do more. There's just going to be a lot more people
Yeah.
to do it for.
Yeah.
And so appreciate you working on it, and I'm sure we'll be following up with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, moving right along on our agenda, I was going to change things around just a little bit and ask Department of Community Affairs to come up. We have Catherine Ivy.
Community health.
Well, we have Department of Community Affairs. You're with Community Health.
Community health.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, come on up.
Okay.
And Brandy, you're going to get us started?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. Brandy's, I've been coordinating with Brandy, and appreciate her coordinating on her end with DCH, and look forward to hearing what you got.
Good afternoon, Chairman LaHood, members of the committee. I'm Brandy Sylvan. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Department of Community Health, and we certainly appreciate you inviting us to participate in this discussion. So today I just wanted to briefly give an overview that we are going to be discussing. First, Catherine Ivy will come up. She's the Deputy Director of Medicaid over Service Delivery, and she's going to be discussing our home and community-based services that currently exist in the Medicaid program, and kind of compare and contrast those with our institutional nursing home Medicaid program. And then after Catherine speaks, John Upchurch will come up. He's our Director of Reimbursement, and he will kind of do a deeper dive into how that nursing home reimbursement works in our Medicaid system. But certainly if y'all have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me directly afterwards, and I'll connect with the right folks and get any information to you that would be helpful.
Very good. Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
Can you see me? I feel like I'm way down.
I can see you.
That's nothing new, though.
Could you give us your title again?
Happy to. I'm the Executive Deputy Director of the Division of Medicaid, specifically responsible for service administration.
Okay. Forgive me
Yes.
for getting
No.
that wrong a few minutes ago.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I appreciate you letting DCH speak to you this afternoon and let you know what we already do in the areas of residential support and residential care and Medicaid. I thought it might just get us started well with understanding what we do now. As you know, the Department of Community Health administers the Medicaid program for the state and is the single state Medicaid agency. Does that among a number of other functions, but that's the one I'm here to talk to you about today. So what we wanted to begin to talk about today on the agenda is residential services and the Medicaid waiver programs, and those would be what we call our community-based programs and Medicaid expenditures in the community. And I'm going to specifically focus on residential services. I'm going to give you a rundown from the most current data we have about the number of members who receive residential services in each of the waiver programs. I'm going to tell you about the expenditures, current expenditures by program. And then at the last, I'm going to mention a little bit about the federal restrictions around residential care and use of Medicaid funds for residential services. And then as Ms. Sylvan said before, John Upchurch is going to come up here and talk to you a little bit about nursing home reimbursement and how we determine nursing home rates. So just to get us started, I wanted to point out really the similarities between what we would call our institutional reimbursement, which is essentially nursing home care, and our community-based waiver reimbursement in Medicaid, which is what we would refer to as our small personal care homes, community living arrangements, a little bit larger settings, but I'll talk about those in a minute. Essentially, both of these funding mechanisms for residential care for older adults and disabled adults requires the same level of care as if that person were to enter an institution. So It's based on a functional level of care deficit, and it is a criteria that we use to determine eligibility for someone to receive Medicaid funding in a nursing home. The same level of care determination and functional deficit has to be determined for admission to a Medicaid waiver program. So we're talking about folks with functional impairments that prevent them being able to live alone and manage their own daily care. So that is the same in both the community-based side and the institutional side. In the area of reimbursement, nursing facilities are reimbursed under the state plan, meaning primarily that there's no cap on the number enrolled. So for example, if you meet the nursing facility level of care in terms of your functional limitations, you're admitted to a nursing facility. The same is not true with the waiver of the community-based programs. There's capped enrollment and it's by slot count. And so that's the major reimbursement difference between the two. And I hope you all will stop me at any point if you have questions. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
What is the cap?
It depends on the waiver program itself. It's based specifically on the average cost of the institution that is waived by virtue of the person being a part of that population. So I'll be more specific about that. In the elderly and disabled waiver program, we waive the cost of nursing facility placement. The average cost of care in a nursing facility is around $65,000 a year in Medicaid, and it's based on the average cost of care. So the same would hold true in the waiver program that serves elderly and disabled, is the cost of care can't exceed that $65,000 a year mark.
And it doesn't matter if the person is elderly or if they have Alzheimer's,
It wouldn't matter. It
Okay.
wouldn't matter.
as long as the deficit was there.
Yes, ma'am. It's all based on the functional impairment. And the functional impairment can be caused by cognitive impairment or can be caused by physical impairment.
Are you going to talk specifically about the specific cost, or would that be?
I'm going to go into the average cost of care in the waiver programs. Is that maybe what you're referring to? Okay.
We'll start there, and I'll ask
Start
more
there?
questions if I have any.
Okey-doke.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Fair enough. Out of 4 waiver programs, Medicaid waiver programs in Georgia, 3 of them fund residential services. And they serve, as I mentioned before, various populations. So the elderly and disabled waiver program we call the CCSP and/or the SOURCE program. Each of them has a little bit different function, but they're all both are contained in the same Medicaid waiver, the application to CMS that we submit. The independent care waiver program serves individuals who are younger. They have to be between the ages of 21 and 64 at the time of admission. And the individuals served in the independent care waiver program are typically more functionally impaired. They most often have significant physical disabilities. About 54 of the folks in that waiver program are actually living in homes and communities on ventilators, mechanical ventilation support. The other subset of that population is the traumatic brain injured individual. So it serves both physically disabled and traumatic brain injured individuals. The Comprehensive Supports Waiver Program is a waiver program for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And you hear of it often because our operational partner in this particular waiver is the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. But we actually administer that waiver as well. There's a 4th waiver called the New Options Waiver, which also serves folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but it serves people who live at home, usually with family members. It does not provide residential care. So I've left that one off for purpose of this discussion today. I wanted to give you an idea of the basic service itself, the residential service within each of these waiver programs. The CCSP and SOURCE, or the Elderly and Disabled Waiver Program, they call residential services by different names, but essentially it's the same service. In those programs, we call residential care alternative living services, but there are two components of that. One component is in a larger group setting, which can serve up to 24 individuals in the same residence. And the other option is a family model, which serves up to 6 people in a licensed personal care home.
Can I stop you there just for a minute? Ask
Absolutely.
you to elaborate.
Sure.
Can you give us a little background on why the maximum residents served is capped?
I'm going to get into an actual federal regulation around that in a little bit, but it's fuzzy. Essentially, in a community-based setting, we're assuring the federal government that it is non-institutional, that it looks and feels and resembles a home environment, a community environment. And at the time that the Elderly and Disabled Waiver Program was developed and residential services were introduced, it was thought that 24 individuals was probably the maximum number that you could serve and still have a home-like environment. In the independent care waiver program, we only provide services through the family model. So it's the smaller homes. And in the ICWP waiver, we can serve up to 7 individuals at a maximum. As you can imagine, that particular provision is primarily because these folks require more care. They're more physically disabled. They require a greater intensity of care, and so it was felt at the time that a lower cap on that particular population was probably better. And then in the comprehensive support waiver program, we're getting smaller and smaller here. They have a maximum cap on their group homes, as they're mostly referred to, which is a licensed community living arrangement, of 4. So no new providers will be admitted to the comprehensive waiver program with a capacity of greater than 4. They also have a second model, which is called a host home model, which a lot of states call adult foster care. Same thing, we just call it a host home. But it's the same concept, which is a family home, admits no more than 2 individuals into that family setting. Often it's a family environment with children and soccer and softball and everything that families do, and they just happen to have 2 adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities living with them.
Can I stop you there for a minute?
Absolutely. Yes.
Backing up one of your slides where you mentioned that there's a capped enrollment slots for the community-based waivers.
That's right.
Can you tell us what does enrollment look like? Are all of those slots currently filled?
It depends on the waiver program. We have no wait list in the independent care waiver program right now. We have no wait list in the SOURCE program. We have a slight wait list in the community care services program only because of our capacity to quickly admit people, to be honest with you. And in the comprehensive support waiver, which is for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, the wait list is around 6,000 people right now.
Which one is that again?
The comprehensive supports waiver program.
Okay.
And
All right.
it's a little bit of a, I should explain that for the comprehensive supports waiver and the NOW waiver, which are both maintained operationally by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, they combine their wait list. So of that wait list of 6,000 people, many of those folks may live with families and get other kinds of services, but as they age or as they need additional care or their families aren't able to care for them anymore, they move seamlessly over into the COMP waiver program.
One more question, then I'm
Yes,
going to
sir.
let Chairman Taylor ask a question. With the statistics that Director Cox just presented to us with the rising demographic, would you anticipate more slots being needed?
Here's how that works, and so I can't really answer yes or no. I certainly think they're going to be needed. The way that it works is that we submit an application to CMS every 5 years, and we project how many people will be served in the waiver program. We add a cost adjustment or a rate adjustment, a cost adjustment on the program itself based on the population demographics. But it's only, it only will go as far as the appropriations go. Because of the fact that the waiver programs are capped, and they're matched at a 2/3 basis with federal dollars, it just depends upon how much money we have in terms of how many people we can admit.
Okay. Chairman Taylor.
Thank you. It just so happens I have constituents that are getting older, and they have a developmentally disabled child, and that child is now in her 30s, late 30s, and their concern is, okay, they're barely taking care of themselves, and they can no longer care for her. What resources are there for her? Does this particular one happens to be on home dialysis,
Oh.
and is there any place where she would be able to go into a home and be able to have that home dialysis? They've looked at nursing homes, and they will not do home dialysis. Is there any option for them?
That's tough. I would say that home dialysis doesn't prevent her from going into a group home, but it does present a whole separate set of needs for nursing and that sort of
Right.
thing.
And most what they're finding, and I really don't have a solution for them either, is that nursing homes can't take them because they're not allowed to. And the individual homes don't want to take on that liability either. So they either have to go to regular dialysis and go in and out. Okay, that would be
I
it.
wouldn't say that that's an absolute. I would tell you that we could beat the bushes and see if there was a home that was willing to do that.
Okay.
We, particularly in the comp waiver, we do have homes that have a great deal of nursing services, I would say over top of the residential care. And so the provider would be working with a base residential rate, but then we would provide nursing services in addition for some number of hours a day for the
Okay.
individual.
Okay, and again, what would there be extra waiting time? I guess that's where it is. The concerns for all of them. Again, we have a growing number of constituents needing services, and usually we can find them, but we have a couple times run into a little bit of a waiting period.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, but I'm happy to give you information or to take the information. DBHDD administers the wait list,
okay.
and they open up slots based on a most in need basis. So it's not first come, first serve. It's definitely authorized on a most in need basis. So parents who are aging, who can no longer or just barely are able to meet the needs of that older child, that we'll call them a child, but they're not a child.
Adult,
No, they're
yeah.
adult children. Would be considered top of the priority list.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Chairman Petrie.
Yeah, and thank you, Ms. Ivy. I'm so glad you're here. I just wanted to emphasize something so that everybody here understands the impact of what you just said about the waiting list. So back in the day, because I've been in this world for 30 years, it was routine to have thousands of people on waiting lists. So, we used to always have 1,000 people on independent care waiting lists. It's down to 0. That DD waiting list, 6,000 people, was easily 10,000 people just a couple of years ago.
Exactly.
So, and then CCSP, back in the days you and I grew up in, we've worked together for a long time, and you've always been the cream of the crop. And I'm so glad you're in the position you're in, because you understand these issues so deeply, and you've lived at every level. But we used to routinely have easily, in every PSA that Ms. Cox pointed out earlier, easily 1,000 people on the waiting list in every every PSA, in every AAA region.
We did.
Pretty much 1,000 people. So, folks, we've come a long way with focusing on serving people with disabilities in this state, and I think that's powerful. When you mentioned that update on the waiting list, I was glad to hear that. I did want to mention a question for you as it relates to the CLAs on the
Yes.
comp waiver.
Yes.
So the limit on the aging side of 24, there's a limit of 4 on a very small congregate type home of 4 beds only on the DD side with IDD individuals. That also, just to make sure I'm understanding, that is also a limit placed on the state by CMS. Is that correct?
Maybe it's more accurate to say the reverse. We knew that there was a limit desired of 4 on a small group home, And so we placed that in the waiver as a stipulation that we would not enroll new providers that would
Gotcha.
serve greater than 4.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm following you, so that is a departmental, the Department of Community Health, in seeking the waiver, created that limit. It isn't a mandate from CMS, just to make sure I follow.
It isn't. It was created in conjunction with DBHDD on
Okay.
industry standards and the state of the art as it was known at the time of that
Sure.
waiver development.
Kind of, a best practice.
Best
But it's a state best practice. It's not coming down from CMS,
That's
from the
correct.
feds.
That's
Okay,
correct.
thank you. That's what I wanted to understand. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I wanted to give you an idea of how many people are served in the settings that I just noted, and I divided these by settings so you could have a look. About 1,000 people are served in the elderly and disabled waiver, the CCSP and SOURCE programs, in the family model, the small group homes, no more than 6 people. About, what is that, 18, oh gosh, I don't have my good glasses on, 18, thank you. About 1,800 people are served in that larger model. Typically, that group model is, you're going to find numbers of folks from around 10 to about 20 or so. That would be the typical nature of the group home. Even though it can go up to 24, you're often going to find 14, 15 people in those larger homes. In the independent care waiver program, you see this very small number of folks that are served in residential settings, and that's partly because, and this is just my own editorial note, they require specialized settings. They require accessible homes, they require ramps, they require widened doorways, and it just can be more difficult to find a residential setting that meets those criteria. In the comprehensive waiver program, that's where you see the great bulk of residential care provided in that particular waiver program. And you see that nearly 5,000, right about 5,000 people are served in residential care with intellectual and developmental disabilities, with the bulk of them being in those small group homes, and then about 1,500-ish or so in the small family host homes. And you can see that the annual expenditures really reflect the numbers of people that are served in each of the waiver programs. We divided that for you into total expenditures, which is the top line, and state funds, which are appropriated funds, on the bottom line.
Can you explain to us where's the difference come from, the state funds, the total funds?
Total funds is the total amount billed, with 2/3 of it being provided by federal funds. And then the third of it is what's represented by the state funds amount.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I have a question
Yes.
real quick.
Uh-huh.
Catherine, and I know this may not be something I don't expect you to have this off the top of your head, but as it relates to, you mentioned earlier the $65,000, the customary Medicaid average rate for institutional setting.
Yes.
Every one of these individuals that is here under that annual expenditure, in any of these sites, they all have to have a level of care for nursing home facility placement.
They do.
Okay, and so do you have a figure for the savings as it relates to the state funds for state taxpayers related to those individuals being in the community versus being, I know we've long had community care progress reports, et cetera.
Yes.
Do we have an aggregate figure that might be helpful for people in the legislature to have on the aggregate savings with having individuals in residential settings outside of skilled facilities when they meet a level of care? Do we have that?
We do. I'm happy to get it for you. I don't
That'd be
have it
that'd
on
be
the top of
most
my head.
helpful.
Okay.
Yeah,
Happy to get it to you.
I think I know what Chairman Petrie is asking for, and I'd be interested in the same thing.
All right.
You know, see skilled nursing there with the same data.
Okay. Happy to get that.
And just to say one other thing, just the reason I think that's helpful because, I mean, so there's a lot of conversation about Medicaid. And obviously, our Medicaid budget is growing. Every year I've been here, it's grown. And we've grown by about 18% since 2013, our Medicaid budget. And so, but there's been this whole conversation for a long time about able-bodied working individuals with Medicaid, et cetera. The real issue to me is when you look at this and you see that with $84 million of state funds, we are serving basically 5,000 individuals in residential settings with intellectual and developmental disabilities, because we're drawing down 2/3 more. The leveraging we get by spending state dollars to leverage federal dollars for the most frail, the most weak, the most disabled, people that nobody argues are eligible for Medicaid, is overwhelming. It's powerful, the impact we can have with these budget items. And this is an area where there's not a conversation about this is what Medicaid was created for in 1965. This is the population we're created for. And I have long held, and people that know me know this, and I've said it on the House floor, I've long held that is why our focus needs to continue to be on Medicaid with the people who need it most and we still aren't doing enough for before we start wandering into able-bodied working people. But at any rate, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I think that figure is helpful. And I think that it helps us to recognize when we look at what we're doing with those funds and how we can leverage 2/3 more, it tells us a lot about what we need to be doing going forward. And part of it, I'm glad we've been doing it because those waiting lists are dramatically decreased. So we've been doing it, but we need to do more of it. So thank you.
Finally, I think we're going to finish up the conversation about community-based residential care funded by Medicaid with a couple of important Medicaid restrictions. And these are federal restrictions that I've noted here. There is in Medicaid language, federal Medicaid language, an exclusion for room and board. So I think it's important for us to remember that when I say that we're covering residential services in the waiver programs, we are, but I think what we would have to note is that we're covering the services to individuals who are very frail. Their living costs, room and board, their roof, their food costs, et cetera, is being covered by their check, their Social Security check, their SSI check, and that's a requirement in federal Medicaid. The second thing that I wanted to mention is a new federal restriction. It's a new federal requirement, and it's called the Home and Community-Based Settings Rule. It was finalized in 2014, and for the first time, CMS took the opportunity to really define what they mean by community-based care versus institutional care. So I'll give you a little bit more information on that. They came out with a decision about what didn't look like community-based care and wouldn't be funded as part of a Medicaid waiver program, a community-based waiver program. And clearly, a lot of this is pretty obvious. Settings, they say, that are not home and community-based include nursing facilities, institutions like psychiatric institutions, intermediate care facilities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, hospitals. But I'd like to just note the bottom one. Other locations that have the qualities of an institutional setting as determined by the Secretary. That can be interpreted a lot of different ways, and it's not very well defined. So when we write a waiver program and submit it to CMS, we're asked to define what that residential setting actually looks like. Is it part of the community? Does it involve residents in that facility being able to get out and do things in the community at will? Or does it involve services being brought, for example, religious services being brought to that setting versus people going out to religious institutions in the community? And we have to describe that in great detail. We were required to submit a state plan to Medicaid, to CMS, that defined exactly how we would guarantee settings rule, which we've done, it just makes describing the residential settings much more important since 2014, and so that's another issue that we have to deal with.
Is there a definition that Georgia has created for residential settings?
There really isn't, because there's not a definition that CMS has created. We didn't have too much to go by. It's almost an exclusionary process. We have to define what it's not versus what it is. We were required to develop a survey tool for all residential settings and have our case management staff and others, as they go into those settings and audit those settings, describe them in terms of community-based versus institutional. So it's more an issue of we're defending our decisions about the residential settings that we've chosen versus having a clear definition of what they are. And that's really all I have. If there are no other questions.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm John Upchurch. I'm Director of Reimbursement with the Department of Community Health and for the Medicaid program. See if I'm doing this right. And so what I'm going to do is just give you a brief overview of the skilled nursing facility rate methodology in the Medicaid program. And this is pretty brief. We're trying not to get too much in the weeds on this, but we'll be glad to answer additional questions or if there are any follow-ups. See if we can provide you with answers on that. There are currently 353 nursing facilities enrolled in the Georgia Medicaid program. The facilities receive a facility-specific prospective per diem rate that is adjusted each quarter. And the rate is determined based on the facility's cost, patient day information, case mix, and there's also incentive-based information we use. The cost and patient day information used in the calculation of the per diem rate is taken from the cost report from either 2012, 2013, or 2014, and that depends on when the facility last changed ownership. And the case mix and incentive information is from current quarterly data. So the per diem rate is determined by taking a facility's reported total costs from 5 cost centers: routine nursing, dietary, laundry/housekeeping, operations and maintenance, administrative, and general, and property and related. And then divide that cost by the total patient days during the annual cost reporting period. And just to give you an idea on what that rate comes out to be, the average for the most recent state fiscal year was $191.26. And that can vary significantly by nursing home, depending on their individual cost and the case mix that they have of their residents. The routine nursing per diem component of the reimbursement rate is case mix adjusted on a quarterly basis, and the case mix adjustment takes into account the overall clinical acuity of the residents in the facility, and we make a quarterly adjustment to the routine per diem based on those acuity levels. We also have incentive payments. The nursing facility is eligible for additional quarterly incentive payments. It's a percentage of the routine per diem, and there's a nursing hour incentive. There's a BIMS, or brief interview for mental status, incentive, and there's a quality improvement program, or QIP, incentive. And
Mr. Upchurch, can I interrupt
Oh,
you
yeah, sure,
briefly?
and that's,
If
that's
you-
really,
well-
that's really the end of it, but we would be glad to
No, I
answer
just wanted,
questions.
we'll continue as we did with Miss Ivy, maybe just to ask questions as we go.
Absolutely.
Can you explain, I'm not familiar with the mental status incentive. Can you explain that just briefly, not too much detail, but help us to understand how that works?
Well, there, actually, Daryl, would you mind talking? This is Daryl Threet. He is our nursing home reimbursement expert, actually, and is over our nursing home reimbursement. He is.
We got more questions for
He
you.
is. So I'm gonna put him on the spot and.
And if
you
y'all
don't mind,
prefer,
Daryl.
you can do it after you finish. It doesn't matter. I was just
No, no,
curious. I just wanted to make sure I don't
we'll
forget
go
to
ahead
ask.
and- We'll go ahead and.
And also, just really quickly, we put a few extra slides in your handout that are
Okay.
not in here, and they go into a little bit more detail on those three.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, and those are
back?
available for you, but.
Okay.
But Daryl.
Yeah, and I think the definition is contained in the supplemental handout,
Okay.
but on
Could-
a quarterly basis.
Could you come to a microphone so we can make sure it gets recorded? Is this one turned
Okay.
on? Okay.
That one's on, yeah.
If you could tell us who you are in the microphone first.
Okay, I'm Daryl Threet. I'm with the Department of Community Health. I'm a senior manager for nursing home reimbursement.
Okay.
The brief interview for mental status is a quarterly assessment that's done in the nursing facility. It measures cognitive things out of the residents, and you can have and we made a determination that if you scored a 5 or less on that particular assessment for that quarter, for your Medicaid residents, we would give you an increased incentive, and that would be based on the percentage of Medicaid residents that scored a 5 or less on that particular assessment.
And the 5 or less would suggest that they have issues with cognitive issues.
Correct.
More cognitive issues.
Correct.
The higher the score, the more demented, confused, et cetera, they might be.
Well, the lower the score.
The lower, I'm sorry, I meant the lower, yeah,
Right.
5 or less.
Yes.
Gotcha, okay.
And so
Interesting.
the lower the score, the higher the reimbursement rate.
The lower the score will allow the facility to be eligible to receive it. The number of Medicaid residents that you have, the higher number of Medicaid residents that you have in the facility will allow you to get an increased reimbursement. You know, like if you got 20% or fewer, you'll get a 1%. From 20 to, I think it's 30, you get 2%.
Yeah, let's write that
Well,
down.
yeah,
That's
20
interesting.
Well, we've got it right here, and
Let's hear
it's
that.
actually
Is it in here?
in one of your attachments. But
Yeah.
but I'll just briefly tell you, 20 to 30% is there's a 1% incentive.
Right.
30 to 45% is 2.5%, and 45 to 100% is 4.5%.
Right.
4.5%,
Right.
45 to 100%. Got you. Thank you.
hmm
That's very helpful. I was unaware of that. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh no
Carry on.
that's really as I said, this was intended as a brief overview, and so
Okay.
we're at the end of our slides. But
Okay.
if you have other questions, we'll be glad to answer.
Well,
Does anybody have any other questions? I want to welcome Representative Schofield. Thank you for being here and being a part of the committee.
I have a question,
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. While we're talking about incentives, can you, just to make sure we all understand, obviously the nursing hour incentive seems to be obvious. Tell us about the quality improvement program incentive. Help us to understand that more fully, either of you.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead. We've also given you a slide on that, and we can. And this will really be an overview, and we can certainly get into more, provide you with more detail later on. But the state has a quality improvement program, and if the nursing home participates, they can receive up to a 2% add-on that's added into their routine nursing per diem, and there are certain quarterly clinical and non-clinical standards that the department has set that the nursing home has to meet, has to meet to receive the incentive, and we can provide you more detail on that.
Okay,
if
so,
you'd like to see it.
but if the facility meets a certain score in terms of quality, each quarter, it will allow them to earn 2% in additional revenues for their entire Medicaid population. Am I understanding that correctly?
It allows them to have to earn up to a 2% increase in the routine component of their total per diem, which is just a piece of it. So it's a part of the routine cost center's cost will be increased up to 2% based on how they did as far as the QIP is concerned, which is really meeting statewide averages in certain areas, clinical as well as non-clinical.
Thank you.
So, we've mentioned cognitive Medicaid client. Can you help us understand, I guess a cognitive Medicaid client would be someone on Medicaid who has no cognitive impairment, not memory impaired?
Well, I'm probably not the best person to answer that clinically because I work in reimbursement.
Right.
But so we actually rely on that particular
Right.
assessment right there in order to
Okay.
give us an idea.
When I was with the Alzheimer's Association, we worked with the state to get that done, and the purpose of it was that it takes more care to care for a person with dementia. And so because it costs more, we asked to reimburse the nursing homes at a higher rate so that they'd be willing to take them. And it would work for them as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I would just add that makes absolute sense. I mean, it is clearly more difficult, higher staff ratios, everything to deal with. But I think it's helpful for us to stand. It's quite complicated how we pay our skilled nursing facilities, and I see friends back there with the nursing home. It's rather complicated. It's not quite as cut and dry as other services, so it's helpful to hear all this.
Right. I think one of the takeaways here is it is complicated, and I have deep appreciation for nursing home providers, skilled nursing providers. I did want to just make the statement that we saw the average of $191 a day, $191.26 a day, and for a nursing home patient on Medicaid versus I believe it's around $50 a day for a person in home and community-based services. Is that verified?
That would be to Ms. Ivy.
Okay. Please.
You wanna stop?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It varies depending upon the waiver program. You were absolutely right about the $50 a day reimbursement in the elderly and disabled waiver, the CCSP and SOURCE programs. In the independent care waiver program, the reimbursement rate is $70 a day. And in the comprehensive supports waiver program for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we worked for a couple of years on a cost-based rate study. And the rates are differential. There are 4 rates that are, actually there are more than that, but the rates are divided by tier level, and the tier indicates the acuity of the individual being served. So it's similar to the nursing home rates, but it's defined in distinct tiers and has to do with the amount of care the person requires related to behavioral needs or related to physical needs, physical challenges, that sort of thing. But they're 4 rates, and they vary quite a bit from about $150 a day to about $275 a day, thereabouts.
Okay. Thank you for explaining.
Chairman, my button's not working. I just wanted to ask one of the.
Yeah,
wanted to
go
make a
ahead. Your
comment.
turn on.
I wanted to ask, we've got folks here with the skilled nurse facilities. I wanted to ask them a question. My understanding is historically, Russell, we were, our skilled nursing rate was one of the lowest in the country. What is our current status there? Because we may still be. I mean, I remember we were like dead last. Where are we in terms of our skilled nursing facility average compared nationally?
Yes, I'll let I know we're
Yes.
ranked as far as the southeast, but nationally, Tony has a great 50-state perspective.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'd be helpful.
I'd like
if
to
you
invite
don't mind,
Tony up to the
Chairman.
microphone.
Okay, there you go.
Tony, if you would introduce yourself and tell us what your background is and who you're with.
Tony Marshall, President and CEO of the Georgia Healthcare Association. And we represent approximately 91% of the skilled nursing providers in the state of Georgia. My background is reimbursement, and we do an analysis that we present to the Healthcare Appropriations Committee each year, and have done it to the governor's office and others, and we've compared ourselves. And I know Representative Petrie, that's probably what you're primarily referencing.
Yeah.
When I came on board 4 years ago, we were significantly the lowest paid state in the southeastern United States, and probably in the lower 10% of all of the states in the country. With the funding that's been provided over the last 4 years, we've made quite a significant jump. We've gone from about $160 per day to $191 per day in the last 4-year cycle. And that followed approximately 8 years of effectively no increases that had been during the recessionary period and for other reasons. So effectively, the legislature and the governor's office have just done a great job of helping us get there. We still only rank second to the lowest in the southeastern United States.
Okay.
So we're still $30 to $50 per resident per day lower in reimbursement than we would be compared to the southeastern states. But I should also note our costs are also lower, and probably one of the greatest challenges that in our being able to meet workforce demands is because the reimbursement is lower. We probably struggle greatly to be able to meet workforce challenges in both numbers of direct care workers as well as the pay of those individual workers.
Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Upchurch. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, next, we have someone here from the Department of Community Affairs. Thank you all for preparing the information. And if you would, just introduce yourself, and you can start when you're ready.
Good afternoon. I'm Jill Cromartie, the Division Director for Housing, Finance, and Development at DCA.
I'm Ryan Fleming, the Director of the Office of Housing Finance, and I work underneath Jill's group.
And my name is Dave Wisnett, and I am the Interim Division Director for the Housing Assistance Division at DCA. Number 8.
Can you
I can do it
introduce yourself again?
Absolutely. My name is Dave Wisnett, and I am the Interim Division Director for the Housing Assistance Division at DCA.
Okay, thank you.
First, thank you all for having us here to present about what we do at DCA. Our mission is to build strong, vibrant communities. We serve a very diverse Georgia with very diverse needs. If you take a look at those bullets, we have 25 counties with more than 100,000 people, and then 35 counties with fewer than 10,000 people. So there are about 99 counties in between. So serving housing needs for all of Georgia tends to be a big challenge, but we're up to it. We have over 65 programs at DCA, more than 400 employees, and we deploy roughly $370 million of state and federal funds each year. Services include affordable housing, community development, economic development, as well as planning for local governments. For us, it's critical that our housing is affordable, safe, healthy, and accessible. It should be close to healthcare, activity, and shopping, but there are other needs that it needs to serve too, including transportation. There are three main funding sources for affordable housing within the state of Georgia. That's the housing tax credit, the Home Investment Partnership Program, as well as the Community Home Investment Program.
So a brief overview depiction of the housing tax credit, which is Georgia's and the nation's largest producer of affordable housing. So the Georgia Department of Community Affairs is the housing tax credit issuer for the state of Georgia. Developers apply every year for housing tax credits. We award them these tax credits, and they sell them to investors who want to get a rebate on their income taxes in the future. So the exchange from the developers and the investors is the developer gives investors tax credits, and the investors give developers cash, which they use to develop the affordable housing. A typical affordable housing development has a lot more cash or equity and a lot less debt, which allows rents to be very low and affordable for seniors, families, and individuals throughout Georgia. So that's the basic premise of the program. It is the largest producer of affordable housing in the country, and that is also the case in the state of Georgia. It is highly accountable because it is private developers applying for state funds to develop this housing. No awards are made until the entire development has been completed and income-eligible tenants have moved into those units. For every housing tax credit application that we get, we monitor construction monthly. We get a certified public accountant to certify all costs, and we make sure that all building codes and constructions have been met and that people are income qualified in the unit. Only at that time can they start claiming housing tax credits on that property and on those units. The program was enacted over 30 years ago under President Reagan, and then Georgia also authorized a state matching credit in 2001.
Could you talk to us about any senior-specific housing?
So, yes, and we'll get to that in the next couple of slides.
Okay.
So the program serves all populations in Georgia, so that's individuals working, families, senior citizens, and individuals working with disabilities. When it comes to senior housing specifically, there are 2 tenancy designations which restrict tenancy at a property just for seniors. One is called housing for older persons, which means that a person in an apartment unit must be 55 years or older, and at least 80% of the units on the property have to have one of these people who are age 55 and older. The second tenancy, which is elderly, is more restrictive. So every person on that property has to be age 62 years or older. Outside of those 2 tenancy designations, other properties are able to house families. Seniors are able to live there as well. But these properties are designated specifically for seniors. So just to give you kind of an idea on the affordable housing production in the state of Georgia in the last 10 years, we've done about 45,000 affordable apartment units across the state in both urban and rural Georgia. Of these 45,000 units, 19,000, or roughly 40%, have been for senior-specific tenancy. So that was that housing for older persons tenancy or an elderly designation. So there are more senior apartments available than 19,000 because we have family properties all across the state where seniors are living as well, but that's just to give you a good estimate of where the tenancy restrictions are. This map shows the entire housing tax credit portfolio for senior properties. So every property in the state of Georgia that has that housing for older persons designation or elderly designation. Obviously, if we were to populate it with family properties as well, those would be all across the map as well, and we have seniors living there too. So there are some senior-specific requirements which we make every development abide by. Outside of these requirements specifically, we have a full underwriting team which makes sure that every deal is financially feasible and that we aren't awarding more tax credits than are necessary to develop that affordable housing. As mentioned previously, we also have a construction team which monitors construction progress every month. But some senior-specific requirements that we make every application abide by are to provide a list of required services. So those could be social or recreational programs housed on site. There could be on-site enrichment classes or health classes provided on a monthly basis. Also, Elevators must be installed for access to all units above the ground floor. And then buildings with multi-story construction must have interior condition and furnished gathering areas. And then for every unit on a senior property, all units must be accessible and adaptable by the Fair Housing Act of 1988. Some additional incentives which we like developers to institute on their senior housing developments are preventative health care services. So that could be monthly health education or preventative health screenings on the property. Also building a community garden or other monthly healthy eating programs. Just as an example of one of these is Myrtle Terraces, which applied for and was awarded housing tax credits in 2012. It's located in Gainesville, and it's home to 84 affordable apartment units. It has a housing for older persons tenancy designation, so one person in that unit has to be 55 years or older. And they have a partnership with Brenau University, which is located less than a mile nearby. They have nursing, physical therapy, psychology, and occupational therapy students come on site and basically apply what they're learning in class to do preventative health care, health screenings, health education for residents at no charge. So it's a win-win for the students learning, and then it's a win for residents getting the free preventative health care services.
I think it's important to note that our properties require independent living, so we don't have any assisted living properties within our portfolio. Another major funding source for, go ahead. Sure.
Go ahead, Chairman Petrie.
Is that all right? Before we move on to the
Yes.
next one, I have some questions on
Sure.
this one. So it was well done. So just a couple of questions here. First of all, 55 is older. Wow. Y'all are making me feel bad.
That's why I'm here.
Shouldn't that be 70 or something like that? But at any rate, so this works very much like our film tax credits.
Yes.
Which I'm very familiar with, and and it incentivizes the private sector. And tell me about and I want to study this more deeply, but tell me about caps. So what is the aggregate credit that is allowable, and do we use it up every year? Speak to that, if you would, before we move on.
Yep. So every year, the Internal Revenue Service publishes per person per capita cap for housing tax credits. So Georgia, based off of the population, will get 28 million roughly in tax credits this year.
Okay, 28 million.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we award those housing tax credits. Applications come in May of each year.
Okay.
We have enough funding to do about 35 deals a year, and we get 2 to 3 times the number of applications.
Okay, so you have far more people interested in what is really a like our film tax credits, which are extremely lucrative for the industry. Let's be honest. I mean, some would say too lucrative, but these credits are working. They are drawing interest from the private sector.
Correct.
More so than we can even fully utilize. We could build more of these if we had a higher cap.
On the federal level as well, Senator Isaacson recently co-sponsored the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act of 2019, which would increase that per capita amount for Georgia by 50%, which
That's
would
where
go
I'm
a long
heading with
way
my questioning.
in meeting the need in Georgia.
So anything, if we could, I mean, and I pointed out, I saw your map, and it was interesting to look at your map. I know exactly in my community where those facilities, and in fact, I know where most of them are across the state. I've worked in Georgia so long, but in my community, I know those sites, those little dots on your map, and I know how long it takes to get people in them because I try to help people get in them, and there's always a waiting list. And so we could have more locations that were affordable for older people if we had an increased ability to allow people to access these tax credits.
Correct.
And that's what I wanted to fully understand. Anything else that you think would be, is there any other information that you this is a very good summary, but is there more information you could provide to us? Doesn't have to be right now, but later, email, et cetera, to give us more information
Absolutely.
related to some of the things I just questioned you on, the caps, et cetera?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, if you would.
Right now? So to get more into a little bit of the specifics, there are 2 types of housing tax credits. One is the competitive housing tax credit, and then the second is in conjunction with tax-exempt bonds for the state of Georgia. So like the per capita credit, the tax exempt bonds are capped by the IRS based off of Georgia's state population. So we do both affordable housing developments with the per capita credit and then in conjunction with the tax exempt bonds under the state. So the competitive tax credits are called 9% credits in the industry, and then the ones used with tax exempt bonds are called 4% credits.
And we have never reached the bond cap.
We have never reached the bond cap, and we have seen a big spike in production under the 4% credit and bond program, mainly due to Georgia's state matching credit. So that credit provides roughly 1/3 of the development costs funding source, which goes a long way in the state of Georgia, especially in our rural areas where the income and rent limits are lower than they are in Atlanta Metro underneath the program. So that state credit and those bonds help us do developments in rural areas where those income and rent limits are much lower.
I've got a question on the, great questions, Chairman Petrie, thank you. I've got a question on the required services.
Mhm.
You've got 4 different types of, well, number 4 is other, so that could include a lot of things, I guess. But elaborate some on the frequency of these services being delivered in these settings, and who is making sure these are continuing and consistent.
So those services will be provided monthly, and as part of Jill's team, we have a portfolio and asset management team, which ensures compliance over the 30-year affordability period. So they will be the ones reaching out to owners to make sure that those services provided on site are happening. They also ensure that every tenant on the property is income eligible, that there's no issues with units, that units are being maintained, and that construction is meeting code and standards throughout the length of that affordability period.
So when you say monthly, the services are being delivered monthly,
So
how many days during a month?
So if it's a class, it will be a couple of days a month as determined by the owner.
Okay.
If it's a blood pressure screening, it's 1 day a month.
Okay. Thank you.
Chairman, one last question.
Yeah.
Just so everyone here is aware. So on our film tax credits, you save about 10%. What is the savings to an individual who utilizes this customarily, plus or minus?
So for a 1-bedroom apartment in the Atlanta metro area, the highest the rent could be charged, including utilities, would be about $890. And then for our lowest income counties, for a 1-bedroom unit, the highest rent could be charged would be around $680. So it depends on the area. It could be a couple $100 in our rural areas with lower incomes. And then in Atlanta, it could be, $400, $700 if you're looking at a comparable unit in the market.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And for seniors living, especially on fixed income, $400 or $700 a month goes a major way.
I made some notes while we were waiting earlier. We have 65 rural counties that have the very lowest area median income. And at 60% AMI for a 2-person household, that's roughly $28,000. But the average income for most of the residents living at our properties is just north of $13,000. So if you divide that by 12 months and your rent is $600, you're really severely rent burdened. And to your point, most of our properties have waiting lists in excess of 300 to 1,000 people. People just don't move out of our properties. The only reason people generally move is for a higher level of care or death. So one of the other big funding sources that we use to develop affordable housing is the Home Investment Partnership Program. This home is funded by HUD. It can be used to finance the development of properties, provide funds for the renovation of owner-occupied properties, or to provide rental housing subsidy. We use the majority of our home funds to finance the development of affordable housing. It serves sometimes as gap financing or long-term financing. Over the past 10 years, 61% of our senior properties have been funded with home funds. So this allows us to build more units across the state of Georgia. For the money that we're not using for the development and financing of affordable housing, we use in the CHIP program, Community Home Investment Program. CHIP is really a unique program. It allows us to do owner-occupied rehabilitation, so it allows our seniors to age in place, which is very important. This is a competitive process as well. We host an application once a year. We receive usually 30 to 60 applications from municipalities around the state of Georgia. We award between $5 and $7 million. Each home, the average home repair is $50,000, and this serves residents whose area median income is less than 80%. And these are some of the cities on the following slide that have benefited from the CHIP program. Other services that we have at DCA include rental assistance, down payment assistance, fair housing support, and all of our properties can be located on georgiahousingsearch.org. For local governments and other entities, we offer planning and research, as well as data analysis and funds for community, economic, and downtown development. Dave, would you like to give some stats from your program?
Yeah, I'll just make sure I'm on here. Looks like I am. My name again is Dave Wisnett, Department of Community Affairs. So I'm here really kind of more in a resource capacity. If you all have any questions related to sort of the homelessness end, which is what I've been over at DCA for a number of years now, in terms of homeless services, either funded by HUD or potentially funded through state dollars. And then in the last week, which was the interim part of my position title, I'm now also over the housing authority that is administered by DCA as well. And if we think about the housing authority administered by DCA, that is roughly 14,000 vouchers, housing vouchers. So those are Section 8 vouchers, and 31% of the folks that receive those are 55 and over. So I guess that counts as near elderly, which is a little bit of a frightening statement when you think about near elderly. I don't like that age being associated with that. But you can see that a significant portion of those vouchers does go to that population. If we think about the homeless population, there are about 60,000 people in the state of Georgia, other than Columbus, where we don't have data, but about 60,000 people who present for homeless services during the course of a year. And you may hear about the point-in-time count sometimes, and the point-in-time count is a snapshot of one evening to see the total number of homeless people in the state, and that is about 10,000 people. But if you look at the number of people who come sort of on the course of a year, that's around 60,000 people. And of those people, about 8% of those are seniors. And for that measure, we're counting 60 plus. So it is projected that within the next 10 years, roughly, the number of senior homeless people will double or potentially even triple. And that really is a function of the folks born between 1955 and 1965 who are going to have increasing health care costs, who are increasingly burdened by high rents, and many of whom, if they had any property that they owned or they had wealth or other assets, they may have lost those kind of in the Great Recession. So we're looking at more and more folks who are seniors becoming homeless as we move forward. HUD has targeted a number of different populations, subpopulations. Y'all may have heard veterans, that's a big thing. Now we're targeting homeless youth, which is up to 25. But we are not targeting, as of yet, senior homeless folks. So it's interesting that we're seeing that this is a demographic that's going to be increasing. But as of now, HUD is still not really looking to have anything specifically oriented towards them. And we have seen new vouchers that have been created, such as mainstream vouchers for non-elderly disabled folks. That's up to 61. which is back on the housing choice voucher side. But we're still looking for sort of that level of support on a HUD basis. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview of what the situation is, where homelessness is going to be increasing for this population. Housing choice voucher, our 149 counties, the wait list is closed right now. The last time it was open, 690,000 people applied to be a part of the program, 690,000. That was basically limited by lottery to 25,000. So that wait list probably will open up again in a couple of years, but there is no elderly preference or any other kind of preference that currently exists for folks above a certain age. And I know that's a daunting number, 690,000.
Yeah, could you clarify that number?
Sure.
The 690,000.
So let me get closer to this thing. So when the housing authority opens up its list, it has to take all the applications that come in, and typically, as y'all may have seen, I know in College Park they kind of had riots in the streets when they opened up the wait list because there were so many people that wanted to be a part of the program. When we did the last time, which was a few years ago, 690,000 people came forward and submitted applications. And so basically, we couldn't take all those people into the program and never would be able to take all those folks into the program. So what you do is you have a lottery basically where you pull 25,000 names out of a hat, and that is your wait list. But you know, we did not do. Some folks have in-person applications, so obviously we didn't have 690,000 people coming into our office. That was an electronic process, but that kind of shows you the need. And again, if you look at the fact that 31% of the people on the program are 55 and up, that kind of maybe informs you as to what some of the need is as well.
So 25,000 are selected to
be on the wait list.
To be on a wait list.
And so as vacancies occur, they are pulled off the list and go through eligibility, and if they're eligible, they're issued a voucher. And
So
then they've got to find their own housing at that point.
Are the 690,000 applications all eligible people?
They are
or
not.
Are they all screened for
They are
eligibility?
They are screened. They are screened preliminarily, and then we really get down to when you're pulled off the list. That's when you get into the detailed screen, because you got to have certain documents. You got to have certain information. You got to be able to document your children to a certain extent. So all those things go into it.
But the 25,000 that you reduce it down to are screened and deemed eligible.
They are screened, right. And so right now we've got 10,000 on the list that we're still trying to get to, which is why we're probably looking at, you know, of the 25, we've got 10 left. Mm-hmm.
That 690 is for low-income housing?
It is.
That's all?
Right. These are all, and really, we say housing choice voucher now, but more people are familiar with the old Section 8 term.
Yeah.
Right. And these are all tenant-based vouchers, so we don't have any properties that we own or that we administer, like some places, like Athens. And there's some areas where they do have that, like Athens, and we run the voucher side, and they've got their own public housing that they run, that they own and run.
Can I speak to that, Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
So just to make sure I'm following you. So these individuals, if they're selected, they're on a waiting list. A small number of them, you had so many, I'll use the term slots. I'm sure you don't
Right.
like that term. There were so many slots. You put 25,000 on the waiting list. If they're chosen, they have that voucher to take to the private sector for housing.
That is correct.
Interesting to me that so in a state of 10 million people, you have 690,000 people applying. Y'all are doing a pretty good job advertising or marketing, that's for sure.
Right.
Because, I mean, the fact that many people are aware of how to seek it out is unbelievable. That's why I was
Right.
surprised at the number. So a couple of questions. So we're talking about, I want to come back and talk to you about homelessness, because I think it does relate, but you said 8% would likely be, plus or minus, would be seniors, probably.
Right.
And I think that makes sense. I think most of us that we're seeing a exponential increase in homelessness everywhere we look.
Right.
And I have people now that live in little small towns that say, I can't believe the homelessness. I mean, it's everywhere. We've got 26 camps in Chatham County right now,
Wow.
homeless camps. and we don't know what to do. And I've been working on it. I've been trying to work on some solutions, and we've done some things. So I want to speak to that. But first, I want to ask you about this, the home program.
Yes.
So 80% of the median area income. So these are not indigent folks necessarily. Okay, this is serving people who are this home investment program, CHIP, as you describe it. They're not going to be those 13,000 necessarily. There'll be some of those, but they're also going to have it's means tested, but they're going to have a higher level of income, right?
More than likely, yes.
More than likely.
Yes.
Okay. But what interests me is that your average in repairs to the home, this surprises me, $50,000 for an average one of these grants?
Yes.
That's an
yes.
awful lot.
It is a lot.
Because I understand well what it takes to make a home livable to a senior, and that's the target here, or someone disabled, wheelchair ramps, grab bars, etc. Why is the average, in my opinion, so high? Maybe it's not so high. Why is the average $50,000?
I will tell you, a lot of the grants that we give are in rural Georgia, and Ryan can attest to this. Getting skilled contractors to go to rural Georgia is turning out to be a bigger challenge, not just for the CHIP program or the owner-occupied rehabilitation program, but also for the tax credit program. Construction costs are up, material and labor, those costs are up. So I would say that's probably the biggest reason why it costs $50,000, but they're doing a full scope renovation, so it's usually not just a kitchen or a bathroom, it's the entire house.
So if I can just follow up, I know there's other questions, obviously. I want to make sure I'm following you because obviously everyone here is interested in making sure we keep people at home longer, and we have ways to find housing for seniors longer, particularly those that might have lower incomes. But to do that, we also need to make sure we're efficient. So I want to follow your logic. So having done a lot of building and development myself over the years, typically it is cheaper to do things in rural areas. Labor is less expensive in rural areas, period. So I'm trying to understand why it's costing you more because what I think I heard you say is that the average is higher because it costs you more in rural areas than urban areas. I'm having a hard time understanding that
is
because
correct.
that's counterintuitive to me.
That is correct. Let me go back to the application too. So when they submit their application, they might say, we plan to develop or renovate 8 homes in our town, and we expect the average to be between 40 and 50,000.
Is it just interrupt you? Is it a local government that is making the application?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
so it's a local government
Yes.
that's saying we want to do this. Okay.
And so and these are averages. So on average, if we're awarding 300,000, we're probably only doing 6 homes. If we're doing 500,000, we're doing 10. But we score the applications based upon the applications that have the best story, that are the most resourceful.
If I were applying and I was spending that $500,000 to serve 5 times the homes by doing little things that help people be independent, because you don't have to, I live in this world and have my whole career. You don't have to remodel kitchens to keep people at home. What you have to do is put grab bars and tubs and wheelchair ramps and rails, and there's assistive technology. There's all kind of, was alluded to earlier by Director Cox. There's so many things we can do that oftentimes that are not extremely expensive. They're not $50,000. Again, others may disagree. It seems to me that the best bang for our buck would be to do as little as possible to help people to be independent at home. And it may be that perhaps the applications that are coming in from local government, maybe that's just not what they're interested in. Maybe they're just trying to do bigger projects. I just don't know that I understand that.
And they also have the right to do new construction on blighted or vacant lots. So some of those numbers might be skewed, but
So-
they also have the ability to build new construction on vacant lots.
All right, now that changes the whole dynamic of what we're talking about. You're saying that some of these will be whole new homes built on an empty lot?
It could be a combination of the two, but our biggest priority is helping people age in place. So most of our awards are given to municipalities that reflect those desires. But it is in their application, it would say 4 homes for this and 2 for new construction, but they have
So it was alluded earlier when you were doing your presentation about the oversight y'all provide for the tax credits. How much oversight is there provided here in light of my questioning? Because it sounds like this 50,000, it may be some of the little things I'm talking about, or it may be, I mean, building a whole new house will obviously drive that average up, and that may be why I'm having a hard time with the figure, if these are whole new homes. So who has that information in your department who can tell us exactly what we're doing?
Oh, I
Where-
can,
where
I can
is
provide
that
that
in-
information.
Let's
But each
get
of
more
these properties
information,
has
Chairman.
to have environmental reviews. Because it is a HUD-funded program, they have certain hurdles and reports that they have to provide, and that also goes into the total cost. So it's not just construction, but yes, we can certainly
I'd like
afford
to
that.
understand exactly where this money is going,
Mhm.
because I think that one of the things we might do is advocate that we do things that really help people be independent longer. If our focus is to keep people in the community as long as they can be, you know, yes, we can build a whole new home and help somebody stay in the community. But for the price of building one whole new home to keep one person in the community, perhaps we can help 10 people stay in the community by doing little things that keep people independent at home. Does that make sense?
It does. And to
So
your
I would
point,
like to
every
understand
year-
that better.
To your point, every year when we receive our HUD allocation, we meet to determine how much of the money we want to allocate towards the development of our multifamily program versus our single-family program here.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm sorry.
Well, I think Chairman Taylor had a comment.
I just want to make a comment about that issue because we have had some of the homes in my region, and they had to be brought up to code. We had a lot of, older wooden homes, still had fuses, not panels, and they had to be brought up to code to be able to have the proper electricity. Sometimes it's medical equipment that the people in the homes needed. So these are houses that were in really bad shape. So it did require some new plumbing. It required new electrical be run, and it did keep them in their home. It did get the bars and the things like that, but some of these houses were also new roofs. And that was another thing. It kept them in the house. And again, you weigh, is it better for them to stay in that house? In the long run, it will save them money. That $50,000 would have been gone in less than a year in a nursing home.
I will tell you, I moved my dad. I had him do a short sale years ago, and I moved him out of his house. His roof had leaks, his oven didn't work, his air didn't work. He was so proud of that house, though.
Yeah.
He said, I know you guys think I'm poor and my house is a dump, but this is all I have. I forced him to do a short sale, and I moved him into one of our housing tax credit properties, and I think I sent him into a depression for a few years. Because for his generation, home ownership was the thing, and I took everything from him.
It is
So
still today.
I wish I knew about this program before I moved him.
Dave?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I was going to add, too, that there are some state dollars that go into similar programs that are kind of administered over on my side. The State Independent Living Council receives money every year for that type of renovation where we're really talking about grab bars, we're talking about wider doorways, that type of thing to allow somebody to stay in the house. That money goes to them, but we administer that at DCA. The other program is the Brain and Spinal Trust Fund, and that provides similar type of repairs for people that have a brain injury, spinal cord injury, and I understand that's funded through the DUI fees that are collected.
Thank you.
Sure.
Representative Schofield.
All right, let's see if we can pull up. So, Chairman, I do understand what you're saying. I do think that there are other ways, but to your point, I too have a lot of people in my community that have homes that it's just not a one and done and put a little plastic and just a little railing there. My question is more on the CHIP program. I wanted to know about your applicants. I looked at this list and I don't see a lot of urban areas in here, in this list on whatever page this is. So what's the selection process? How do we expand that to include other urban areas?
They likely either aren't applying. For instance, I met with Clarkston, and they said they don't apply for many of our programs because they don't score well. Putting together these applications costs a lot of money at times, and you need skilled writers. So for whatever reason, either we're not receiving them or they're not scoring well, but I can look up the information to let you know why they're not scoring so well.
Thank you. That's it.
Chairman Petrie, did you have another?
Oh,
comment?
I was going to ask about homelessness, and so, and I don't want to get off on too big of a tangent because the majority of homelessness is not senior centric, as you pointed out.
Right.
But we clearly have a problem, and it's growing everywhere. I just came back from a conference in Austin, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, Austin, the last time I was there 3 years ago, it's a different city now. You can't walk down the street. And so we've had huge issues in Savannah. My constituents, I've been burning me up about it. Just downtown, everywhere, in the parks, in the squares, huge issue. Obviously, we got to humanely deal with it. One of the things that, obviously it's a bigger, there's a lot of reasons for it. And huge issues with substance abuse, huge issues with mental health, which is where we've tried to focus. We focused this year. In fact, Chairman Taylor and I, we in health appropriations, we got funding for a behavioral clinic even in Savannah, in my community, that I think is largely going to help us triage these individuals that are in and out of the hospital with mental health issues. But one of the things that I've tried to talk about locally is that we need a endorsed area for homeless people to go. So in my community, we don't need 26 homeless camps, people living under bridges. It's not fair to everybody else who is homeless, because there are people wandering in the streets. There are people that are being, accosted, and I got constituents that call me and say, I can't go. I'm scared to go to Walmart at night because people are panhandling me all the way to the door, and that's violating their rights. So one of the things that I'm trying to advocate for, and I'm interested in your position, is we need an endorsed site, because one of the challenges we have due to a recent Supreme Court ruling is that you can't, and I see you nodding, I know where I'm going, is that you can't force these people to leave unless you have somewhere for them to go. You have to say, so you can't sleep on the park bench in downtown Savannah, we would have said in the past. Well, now we say we got to have somewhere for them to go. So we need an endorsed site. So if we were to, if the city of Savannah were to decide that we have a piece of land somewhere that we want to make it like a campground. You ever been to a state park campsite?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Just have the basics. A corporate bathroom, a shelter, and a place for people to pitch tents. Because right now these individuals have no running water, they have no toilets, they have no garbage dumpsters, they have nothing. And they're wandering up and down the streets, and I get the calls, they're defecating in people's backyards and on the city streets. And if we had the ability to create a site where we said, no, you can't be here, but we have a place you can go. And then we could have services, mental health services, could concentrate. Right now they're trying to hunt down people all over the city. If we could get individuals to stay in a site where they could have all the freedoms they need, but we could have those services they need so desperately related to mental health. We could have, whether it's churches we could have our churches, who are doing a great job of feeding folks. We could have bathrooms, showers, all of these things could be available. Is there a way we could endorse a site like that and get money through DCA to serve those individuals?
To get money through DCA?
To a local community, to whatever city it might be. Is there a way to direct resources to help? We're talking about housing.
Right.
These are individuals that don't have housing. A small percentage are seniors. But we need a place for them to live. And right now, decade after decade, they're still not living in apartments. They're not living in homes. They're living under bridges all over everybody in this room's community. Is there a way to create locations where they could live, where they would have security, they would have maybe law enforcement would know where they were to police the area, make sure they're safe, because there's a lot of crimes committed against individuals who are homeless.
Right.
And they could have the services they need, mental health, maybe ACT teams coming in to provide services with medications, et cetera. Is there a way to do? Is there anything y'all have ever done like that at DCA?
Well,
That's
yeah,
my
this kind of really is what I like to think of as a pretty cutting edge idea that really is gaining popularity, particularly out west. Because we see in LA, San Francisco, if the average rent is $4,000 a month, there's no way that even working for $15 or $20 an hour that you're ever going to be able to afford an apartment. So if we take that as a given, then what we're going to see is we're going to see these huge encampments like we have on Skid Row in Los Angeles, where literally you've got thousands of people camped out in the middle of a city. So I think that what has been happening out west and what people are trying to look at is, can we create a safe environment that does have police, that does have protections, that does have services? And I think that where it's been done, it's been received overall pretty well by the population that's being assisted. But there also is a little bit of an issue that people have in terms of, are you taking away people's choice, where they want to be, what they want to do? You're kind of corralling people. So that's the other side of things that you've got to deal with when you think about that. To me, especially as we think about the elderly population has a 20-year faster aging process than their peers who are housed. So if you're a person who's 62 on the streets, really you're probably 82. And you're afraid to engage with the shelter system because you're going to get beaten up, you're going to get robbed by people who are younger, stronger, faster than you. So a lot of folks who are seniors don't even engage the system out of safety. And that's what we've seen, that's in the literature, in my own experience back from my agency days. So I think it's an idea that is I think it's a good idea for those that want to do it, for those that want to connect with services. We talk about coordinated entry, which Savannah is a continuum of care, and they've got to institute a coordinated entry program where people can come to get assessed uniformly, matched to housing. That's the best resource for them. I would say that you are going to see some backlash from people in instituting something like that. But I think there are a lot of people that would benefit from that if they chose to avail themselves of it. And I will tell you, before I was at the state, I was on the nonprofit side of the world working with homeless population, and we had about 10,000 folks a year who came through our office. Most people want to be safe, they want to be fed, they want to figure out how they can access services and improve their situation. So the way you're describing this, it sounds like it is moving in that direction. And so I think that could only be a positive in that respect.
Well, I'll leave it at that. They're living in inhumane circumstances. No human being should live that way.
Right.
And there's got to be a solution, but nobody seems to be able to come up with a solution. I just was curious if I could direct some of our folks locally to you guys, but thank you.
Right.
I think you understand what I'm trying to do.
Right, and in terms of funding, I mean, we've got the funding streams that we have would not necessarily directly fund that. We do have some state housing trust fund money. That would be probably our only resource just because that is not encumbered by HUD rules. And HUD really has gotten out of funding services. That's what they don't want to do anymore. They want to fund beds, but not services.
And could you clarify, you said there were approximately 60,000 homeless in Georgia in a given year?
Right. So you've got a couple things. You've got a annual point-in-time count that's required by HUD for sheltered people and people on the streets. The sheltered happens every year, and that's pulling electronic data. And then the unsheltered count, we actually have people that go out into the streets do that. So that number's about 10,000 for the state.
Do you know how many of those are seniors? And when I say seniors,
I do.
I guess I should clarify 65 and older.
So we've got sort of our demographics, the way we count it, and all the programs count age different ways or different clusters. So that really is where that 8% comes in. Okay. That's what we're estimating in terms of senior homeless, and senior homeless again for us is 60. I know that's 62 in some programs, 55 in some programs. But again, that number is predicted to either double or triple, depending on who you listen to, in the next 10 years or so.
All right. Well, did y'all have more in your presentation? Did we stop you before you were finished?
No, that's it.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we could keep the conversation going forever, but for the sake of time, I think we should move on. And thank you so much.
Thanks.
And I'm sure we'll be following up with some questions.
Thanks. We appreciate the opportunity, and,
Thank
and
you.
anything else I can provide, I'd
Very
be happy to.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging in there. We're got a couple more groups that would like to speak, and next I'd like to call Jenny Helms up. Jenny is the current president of Leading Age, and she's going to talk to us about give us an overview of what other states are doing with Medicaid money to help seniors.
Thank you. So, we're part of the national organization, Leading Age, and so I reached out to them to ask for help in terms of what other states are doing to use Medicaid dollars to help support older persons. And particularly, we're looking at maybe the ones that we serve in HUD communities and have some ideas for you on that. But our vision of who Leading Age is we're the trusted voice in aging services, and our mission is to advocate for and support our mission-driven members who serve older adults. So a large percentage of ours are faith-based, associated with a faith-based organization, and we provide advocacy, education, and forums for idea sharings for members who provide housing and services throughout the continuum of care. And one of the groups that we're really concerned about are the folks that are living in the HUD communities. And I will say that our HUD communities for seniors all have about a 1 to 3 year waiting list, and so that is a problem in itself, like you mentioned, Representative Petrie. So one of the things that we're seeing is that as these residents age in place, they have cognitive challenges and chronic conditions that require oversight and assistance with daily living. And the problem is most of these folks do not have family support systems that can be there to step in and to help with that. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And with their income limits, they can't afford assisted living. And so when I asked the managers, what happens with these folks when they're living in your HUD communities? What are we really seeing going on? And with these changes that they're having, they're just kind of, it's like they have a little Band-Aid in place. And the reason is we don't really have a comprehensive system for addressing it. And so what we're seeing is these folks pretty much stay there until something drastic happens, like maybe a fall. And it's the fall that will usually have them leave. But with the cognitive issues, they're really just a little bit dangerous there without having systems in place, oversight in place as they age. And the other big problem that they have is there's a lot of mental health issues in these HUD communities. And so that's one issue. And I will say that I think that the staff and the directors of these are very dedicated. So if they can help them stay in place, they'll do all that they can to help them access services. And the service coordinators are playing a bigger and bigger role in terms of reaching out for services. And they do reach out to the state for assistance with the personal care services coming in, and so that is one good option. But as their health declines and they need more help than that, then it needs to be more of a systems approach to helping them. And so what we see is they're currently staying there pretty much until either they die or till they move into a nursing homes. A lot of times when they search for personal care homes, they have waiting lists as well. So our national office tells us that there are 44 states, including Georgia, that provide Medicaid-funded assisted living through their residential options. But that term assisted living there is very blurry with different states. In some states it's really personal care home, but they're kind of lumping it all together. And like with Georgia, even though it makes the list, that's really through the CCSP program that Catherine mentioned. And so they pay for it through two different ways. And one is through their state plan, and the other is through the waiver services like Catherine mentioned, and those again must meet the income and medical eligibility. And some of the states have tailored programs for them, and they typically have caps, and they also have waiting lists, much like Georgia. But this next slide is one that I think is particularly interesting, and these are different states and what they pay for through their 1915 waiver. And so you can see the different dollar amounts that they are paying, and it ranges. You can just look through it and see the different. Illinois has a couple of different ranges, and including a much higher one for dementia, which I think is really cutting edge, because the truth is these communities do have people with dementia living in them. And Terry Barcroft is here today too, and she's the CEO of Wesley Woods, and they actually have a personal care home within a HUD community and can talk to you about what they're seeing as well. But she'll tell you too that they are seeing persons with dementia. So the different rates that they have done really do seem to make sense. And then other states like Arkansas and Montana have just one rate. And then in Minnesota, it averages by the case mix, which I think is really cutting edge. And as you can see, the rates range somewhere between about $50.25 to $113.29. And you can see that Georgia is on the low range of what we're paying at $50 a day. And so here's where we are in terms of spending money on home and community-based services versus institutional. We're not too far below the national average, and the states right around us are lower. So the national average is 27%, and Georgia is 20%. And here's the examples of how much it's costing different states and what they're paying for. And so you can see, and if you want us to try to get more information on any one of these, we're happy to drill down and ask the national office to give it to us. But you can see the per person costs in that year one estimated per cost. And so it's a low of 11,132 to a high of 23,916 a person. So we had some ideas for some possible policy considerations. And one is that we do need to recognize that these HUD folks are aging in place and in need of more support due to dementia and chronic conditions. And Terry told me that she thinks that we're seeing the people that were in assisted livings 15 years ago. That's who's in a HUD community now. And that a model for paying for personal care services in HUD could leverage the HUD dollars that pays for the room and board, and then the Medicaid dollars that pay for the personal care services. And so it would be ideal if that Medicaid cap that we've put on there of 24 beds got changed. And the reason that we can think about that and still be within that settings rule is, one, CMS has said they're looking for innovation, and two, this is already a community. These are these individuals' homes. Like in Terry, she has one floor that is Medicaid, and that is personal care home, not Medicaid. And it could be that same model where it's 1 floor, 2 floor, or 3 floor, and you still have the building, that person still has dining, they still have activities. It is their home. And so that would be an innovative model for them given the different limits and options. We also need to make sure that we have behavioral health coaches to address the unmet behavioral health needs. And that's just a real issue, because when you ask the directors of these HUD communities, what are your biggest challenges? Number one is the unmet behavioral health need. And so you'll have an individual, and I asked the geriatric psychiatrist at Emory, I said, when you have a low-income person and they need placement, where do they go? And they're looking for the HUD community. And so the HUD community is taking them on, and HUD won't pay for those services like you just heard. So we actually have a co-age issue to try to get some funding this year to put the behavioral health coaches in, modeled after a program that the Atlanta Regional Commission did where the Housing Authority, where they brought in behavioral health coaches. They meet with the individual, they build a relationship, they help get them to the doctor and then the services, and that person's able to stay in that community. And the truth is, if that person moves on to personal care home or nursing home, they can't handle them any better, truly. So that's one policy consideration to look at as we're looking at this. Another one is that skilled nursing care is vital. And the Medicaid funding for assisted living should not take away from the skilled care. We wouldn't have that happen at all. We feel like by the time somebody gets to a nursing home, I think that their acuity is higher than ever. And, you know, we have concerns about the Medicaid rates and would like to see cost studies and like to see us fund closer to what it costs. I know that our members, one of them told us last year that he lost $9 a day on persons with dementia. So we asked the legislature for an increase on that add-on that you were asking about earlier, and they did increase it by 1%. But, you know, I think that we need to pay attention to what these Medicaid rates are and you know, do the best we can to pay it. And then the Medicaid rate should be adjusted for the personal care homes as well. You could see we're at $50. The other states are closer. Most of them are closer to 70 or higher. And again, that's acuity for where they are. And we think that that there needs to be more funding for this if we're going to do it, given the wait list. So that's all to my presentation, but I'm happy to get more information. But both Terry Barcroft here from Wesley Woods and Daryl Jones of Integral Properties have done similar models that I think could give us other ideas for innovation.
And both of them are here now.
Yes.
Would y'all like to come up to the microphones? Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Representative Schofield.
Jenny, I just wanted to speak to and address that. I'm dealing with that right now with two homes in my area where the residents are getting more aggressive, and so staff is asking for safety training, not just to deal with the external environment, but internally, because the residents are getting more aggressive and they don't have any type of mental health services on site. So this is a real need. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
All right, Ms. Barcroft,
Yes.
if you would just introduce yourself and.
Hi, I'm Terry Barcroft. I'm President and CEO of Wesley Woods Senior Living. Chairman LaHood and committee members, thank you so much for having me here. I am the CEO President of Wesley Woods Senior Living. We're a nonprofit, faith-based organization. We own or manage 10 communities across North Georgia. We serve income levels from extremely high-income older adults to extremely low-income older adults in all of our properties. We have 136 licensed personal care and assisted living beds. Of that, 90 are licensed personal care and 46 are assisted living licensed. We have 5 HUD communities across North Georgia serving over 736 older adults, and that is all that we serve as older adults, as you can imagine. We serve over 1,800 senior adults annually in each of our communities. And to the income question that was asked earlier by Representative Petrie, for our Augusta property, which is what I would like to focus on, we serve extremely low income, and the limits in that area are $13,200 annually, up to low income, which is 80% of the area median income, and people in that category can make up to $35,200. So in between that is a broad range between low and extremely low income. As Jenny mentioned, we have assisted living or personal care, licensed personal care within the Augusta property. So to give you more specifics about what that property looks like, it was built under the Section 236 program under HUD. It has a project-based rental assistance contract that serves 117 apartments of the 266 total units that are in that building. So it's a mixture of public and private, market rate, and HUD community service, HUD funding through the Section 8 program. It was built back in the 1970s, 1972 to be exact, and so in that, at that time we were able to offer a mandatory meal program that was layered onto the program. So what this community offers is meal programs, assisted living. It offers a wellness nurse, service coordination, a chaplain, a life enrichment program. We offer rehab therapy in addition to transportation. How we're able to do that, though, frankly, is through we have a foundation that raises money every year. We give between $1.2 and $1.6 million each year in benevolence care. So we really make an effort to raise money to help seniors stay in place within our communities. So we're not just looking for a handout, but we're also asking folks to provide services and funds for the work that we do. So our service coordinators, as you can imagine, they help people age in place. For every resident that we keep in their homes, we're saving the state money from moving into skilled nursing, particularly for those that are in HUD subsidy, anywhere between $81,000 and $61,000 a year that we're keeping folks. Our average age at move-in is 83, and our average length of stay is over 10 years. So folks are moving in much more frail, as Jenny said, and they're staying much longer than they otherwise would have because of all of these services that are in place and keeping people there. To tell you a story about one of our residents living in independent living, she had 11 falls in 1 year. Unfortunately, her income level was over the CCSP limit by about $1,000. She still couldn't afford assisted living. But because we were able to move her into our assisted living program, she's been living there over 18 months without a fall. Otherwise, she would have moved to skilled nursing and been one of those statistics living in Medicaid and skilled nursing. So I think there's a great deal of opportunity that could be had within the public-private share of funding by having our market rate residents living in the community with our Section 8 residents. It helps blend the expense, frankly, and helps us provide more services than we otherwise would have, not only because of our foundation raising money, but because of the market rate rent of folks living in that community.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
This person that moved into, you said, assisted living and had was fall free for 18 months. Was it the foundation that paid her way?
Foundation had to pay her way.
All right.
Yep. We do not utilize the CCSP waiver program in this community. Frankly, the reimbursement rate is very small and has been small for a long time, and we're over 24 beds. And so to be able to offer that, we are over the bed limit. So that arbitrary, not quite arbitrary, I suppose, number doesn't necessarily solve for what we're trying to accomplish in a home-like setting. This is certainly their home, and it is a home-like setting that we could be able to offer in that public-private possibility of mixed income use, if that makes sense. Any other questions about us?
Well, thank you for the good work you're doing. And thanks for sharing it
It's a lot
with
of
us.
fun.
Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, so excuse me. My name is Daryl Jones. I'm Senior Vice President with Integral Development based here in Atlanta. We are a for-profit developer with a great focus on urban communities and low-income and mixed-income communities. We have approximately 8 independent living senior projects, and we found many years ago we were having to have the tough conversations with families, individuals who could no longer stay there, a lot of what you guys talked about earlier. So we actually went and start looking at and evaluating all the different states around the country. What does their Medicaid waiver program look like? How could we combine the low-income housing tax credit with a Medicaid waiver? Obviously, we started looking here in Georgia first. Couldn't quite make it work. We did try something in Georgia, and I can talk about that later. But probably more importantly, we found that it could work in other states. And so there were many states, and I'll use Indiana as an example. Probably about 6 or 7 years ago, they realized that 69% of their Medicaid revenue went to skilled nursing, and only 31% went to home and community-based waivers. They set out and created a rebalancing program trying to get to 50-50. They started doing the math of how much it was costing them per person and looking at in the next 25 to 30 years, individuals above 85 was going to about triple in their particular state, and they knew they had to do something. And what they did was they put a lot of effort into creating a Medicaid waiver program. And they have seen the benefits of that program. And so we created the first project that was funded with low-income housing tax credits that allowed us to put the money into the building to have a very first-class building along with their Medicaid waiver, and they have a tier system based on your acuity, your higher acuity, the more the reimbursement, but it's roughly $75 per day, I think as Jenny referred to on an earlier slide. And that was 5 years ago. We created the first Since then, there have been about 18 others that have come in behind us throughout this program. It has worked extremely well. The state wants to see it even more done because it is for them the avenue to get to the rebalancing. Someone said earlier, if you don't have, and what they were saying was that there were too many individuals who were in skilled nursing that really should have been in assisted living. And so how do you move those individuals to a place that was designed for them, that felt like a community? And that's what we've created. So we've created 2 there, working on our 3rd one now, and it's working extremely well. One of the other things that I will say is that, and this was more the industry sort of figured out, what is the most efficient size to run a community like this, funded with tax credits, and it happens to be in between 115 and 125. And I can talk more about sort of why that is. We did do the first one, but everybody after us sort of fell inside that number, because once you look at the efficiencies of what you had to provide for one versus 100, you can pretty well figure out how to make it work most efficiently. We are very excited about the program there. Looking at doing one in Illinois. We've been funded for a 9% tax credit project in Florida, and we would love to do one in Georgia. And so I will say this. We did partner with DCA several years ago. We did create one in Georgia, but we couldn't use Medicaid, so we actually used the Veterans Aid and Attendance Program to substitute for that. Well, the reality is, and just to be honest, it didn't work out because aid and attendance just takes too long to pay. And we could not carry 9 months, 10 months, 12, 14 months, and we had to convert back to independent living. Great concept, fantastic concept. We just were not able to pull it off using that program. But I want to say I applaud you for looking at this. It is, I think, well overdue in Georgia, and we will do whatever we can to support you in your effort and your research. So,
well, thank you. Appreciate you both, and Jenny with Leading Age. Thank you for bringing Daryl and Terry to the meeting. Appreciate it. All right, we've got one more item on the agenda, and that's I thought it'd be helpful to hear from a personal care home and/or assisted living provider. And we've got Ralph Cowart here, who's a member of ALAG, that's the Assisted Living Association of Georgia, and he's a provider in the Statesboro area.
John, I think I'll yield my time if someone has questions. I think Ms. Ivy answered the questions about what I had.
Okay, all right. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak if you don't.
Okay, come on up and introduce yourself in the microphone.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Shane Wellman, and I'm the Executive Director of Altruis, which is a statewide residential services provider. We work in all the waivers Ms. Ivy mentioned earlier in her presentation, the Elderly and Disabled Waiver Program, known as CCSP and SOURCE, ICWP Waiver Program, and then also the Comprehensive Waiver Program dealing with folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I'm going to repeat a lot of the themes that people have said earlier, but maybe in a little different perspective. You know, last year actually we received a rate increase on the ALS side that actually those rates that Ms. Helms mentioned actually brought it up from $37, $38 a day to $50 a day. So for a ALS provider, that was a significant increase that quite honestly created a lot of enthusiasm amongst those providers, and specifically those providers that provide the family model service that Ms. Ivy mentioned, which is, to remind everybody, the 6 beds or less. So we subcontract with that family model home to provide services, and then we provide the management oversight. We also operate 6 of the group homes that are the 24 bed or less also. But that created a lot of enthusiasm amongst that. So what we have seen over the last year is a desire for more people to get back into that industry. When the rates were decreased, the level of care was a little more challenging to get folks on those waivers. You saw a lot of those small family model homes start to go away. A lot of the beds on the group homes started to maybe move more to private pay rates and things like that. But since we've increased, we've seen again that excitement, and we've actually picked up significantly over the last year the number of beds. So we feel like we're able to continue to serve and serve effectively in a system that's already been set up through the what's known as the ALS waiver ALS program. Also, we feel like that program, with the 24 beds or less that Ms. Ivy mentioned, really meets the theme of what CMS is getting after with the home and community-based service waivers, the person-centered environments. You know, it really keeps that their homes. You walk into those homes and they look like the homes that maybe we would live in. You know, so we feel really strongly that that size program meets the intent of the waiver. With maintaining those standards with the home and community-based services. Another thing that was mentioned, and Director Cox spoke to that immediately when she did the survey for the aging individuals, the physical, mental, and emotional health was one of the main concerns of the individuals that they serve with. And we relate a lot of that to the memory care population, those with dementia and so forth. We would love to be able to serve that population as well in this family or group model, elderly and disabled waiver program, but you can't do it at $50 a day. You know, that rate is just absolutely not high enough to be able to serve those. But we have the facilities to be able to do it. With a higher rate, we'd be able to provide the appropriate safeguards, put the safeguards in place where we could address those, but that rate remains an issue in that area.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Wellman. That's I know Altris is a very reputable, provider in the state, and appreciate your expertise. We've heard a lot of good testimony today, good data, and I appreciate everybody's time in preparing and for being here and showing interest. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? We will follow up and give notice to our next meeting, and we'll make sure everyone knows what the agenda will be of the next